Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Aqibatun lil mustaqim. Allah fi kulli umri asta'in. Wa Allahu fi kulli umri amjid. Innahu Rabbi yuhibbu mu'min ladhi yusalli wa ibadatuhu wa salawatuhu min mukhlisin. Innani ote subhanahu wa ta'ala amtanani wa shukri. Muhammadan huwa sayyidina makbubana. Inhu kana rasulun wa nabiyyan. Sallu Allah ta'ala alayhi wa salam. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh lil ikwani wa akhwati fi din. Wassalamu ala man ittaba'a huda lil ikwani wa akhwati fi Afrika wa Europa wa Amerika wa Caribbean wa Asia wa kulli makan. Amma ba'd. Subhanahu wa ta'ala wa kalimatuhu jamilatun arsala Quran al-Dima lil Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ana yuhibbu Quran al-Kareem. Abudu Allah wahidan makburuhu wahidan. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, while those friends to Islam and to Muslimin, and from our family and our brothers and sisters everywhere, and those who may show up in the future. Halim wa salim bikum. Wassalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and sisters, we will continue today with the permission of Subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi'ifnillah, on the 77 traits of Iman. And as we went through these beautiful traits, it's one thing that's in common. These traits are not hard to accomplish. They've been made easy by Subhanahu wa ta'ala and by our Prophet alayhi salatu salam. And so therefore, we should ponder these 77 traits, try to learn them, define them, implement them in our daily lives, and enforce them. I mean, among ourselves, among our families, our friends, and all places where you have jurisdiction, so to speak, where you have some influence. You do the best you can. And to enlighten your brothers and sisters about the traits, the 77 traits, because many Muslims don't know. Even here, where I'm sitting here in Morocco, there's people who do not understand what Iman is, nor have they even heard of these 77 traits. This type of ignorance is everywhere now, in Muslim countries, non-Muslim countries, and it's really a shame. And a lot of that is attributed to because of the lack, as I said before, lack of scholarship, because many of our older scholars are now dead. Many of them are hidden inside their houses because of fear. They cannot come out. They cannot teach us. They can't even get on the internet. Many of them don't even leave their homes. Many are restricted from going to the masjid. Many are restricted from even entertaining a guest. They are even restricted from giving fatwas. And so there's been a orchestrated pattern everywhere in the world where the A'da Allah, the enemies of Allah, having great influence. And the first thing they begin to attack again, is the scholars, and then our sisters, and then the masjid, and then those who go to the masjid. So the 77 traits of Al-Islam is something that we should get to know and understand, because I'm going to tell you, you have two major enemies. One is the greatest one is Shaitan, the devil. The second is the Tubab governments and the racist Tubab who hate any religion outside us worshiping his religion that he's created out from his heart, his desires, and from his racism, and that's the Eurocentric Christianity, which we don't need to get into. So you have those two enemies at hand. And then, of course, you have the third enemy, which he can be controlled once you control the first two. The third enemy is the hypocrites who aid the devil and aid the Tubab governments who fight the Muslims. And as you can see today in France, the despicable act by the heads of state there, where they closed up hundreds and hundreds of masjids and arrested many imams, which is despicable, considering that these places of worship had nothing to do with what happened in Afghanistan, so to speak, or what happened in other places. But this is in retaliation for some of the things against Morocco and many of the African states who are now throwing the French out. So they start to retaliate. So my dear brothers and sisters, it's essential that you keep your Iman and learn what it is to be a Muslim, and to understand that your deen is more than just talking. There are traits that you must acquire and adhere to. And this is what we're discussing here. And as if you've seen in my chat, I kind of gave you a breakdown. I should have did this in the earlier chapters, but forgive me, I forgot to do this. But now I'm going to start to do this. And we're on number 26. Now you have kind of like a guide, and you can even do your own research on this, because these traits are beautiful and they're not hard to accomplish, my brothers and sisters. That's what's so beautiful about it. They're simple, and they're thought provoking, and it can help you in your daily life. So we'll start here. Number 26 is the 26 is not to have malice or hatred towards anyone. Now, this is an interesting one, because I know some will say, well, hey, yeah, this is a contradiction. I've seen in the Quran, like in Surah 5, where Subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about not to be friends with the Jews and Christians. That's a form of some type of hatred. And then there's other spots inside the Quran where Subhanahu wa ta'ala also has told you to have enmity towards disbelievers and hypocrites, and mercy towards the believers, which I have discussed with the Prophet ﷺ, the order that he was given by Subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy towards believers and have enmity and be stern against the hypocrites and disbelievers. And so you may see the contradiction. It's no contradiction, my brothers and sisters, because here we're talking about hating someone blindly. In Islam, we cannot. Remember last week I talked about that I have to check myself, because I have a hatred, and sometimes that hatred gets past the Islamic tenets. I have to check myself. It's well known how I feel about the racist Tubab. And I admit I fall short of number 26 because, of what has happened in my family history. I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about since we learned. I had my nephew who was great at this, who had dug up our past and our ancestors. And they have suffered far back, as far as about the 1830s, as far how far back we went. 1830s, my brothers and sisters. My family has suffered under that. But I had to come to grips with that, because when you have blind hatred, you begin to hate all. And it's wrong. This is what we talk about here: blind hatred and malice. We are not supposed to have this possession as Muslims. Why? Because Subhanahu wa ta'ala, our prophet, has taught us. He said we're supposed to what? Love fi sabili Allah, not meaning love too much, and not hate too much, meaning you hate fi sabili Allah. Because when you say that, you put a barrier that, yes, you dislike them. Because why? They are this or that in Islam. See, but when you blindly hate, this is where you lead to criminal activity. You get out of focus. you lose balance, and then something happens. I gave example of that. I can recall something what happened to me when I was in the military, and I was at the training camp. I was in Georgia, and Georgia at that time. You're talking about the early '70s. Excuse me, the early '80s. It was still pretty segregated in many towns, and I remember I saw these Muslims. I remember this real well. And at the time I wasn't a Muslim, but I had always had these implications about Islam. So I saw these brothers with kufis. All of a sudden, I saw them berating this one white man that came out of the store. He was a tuba. He came out of the store, and they were berating him. They were going after him and going after him. And then come to find out, you could tell they had hatred. They called him a lot of names. I'm not going to name some of the southern names that they call, tuba. And this guy turned back around and said, "I'm a Muslim." Yes, my brothers and sisters. He owned that store, even though he did not have the outer appearance of that, because he was clean shaven and whatnot. He did not have a kufi, but he told them that he was. And then he gave them salam alaikum, and he told them the masjid he go to. These brothers had blind hatred because they saw him. They thought that, something was wrong. Automatically, they thought it was racism, and they began to fight him. This is what we're talking about here, blind hatred. And he quickly told them he was a Muslim. That was a lesson to be learned right there. So even I fall short of this. And many times I have to catch myself on this. And I'm always reminded I must hate fi sabili Allah Ta'ala. And we should follow that guide. Because I fall short on this 26, I have to work on this. I don't have malice toward just anybody out there. I don't like the hypocrites, nor do I don't like the people like the Salibin and so forth. And sometimes I have just genuine hate, and I have to check myself, which is wrong. Yes, I dislike them. You dislike that person, fi sabilillah, but you cannot hate blindly, my brothers and sisters. We cannot have malice blindly, because it leads to criminal activity, meaning you go strike that person, or you may go stab him, or you may set a bomb to kill him and his family, or kill those who look like the ones that you hate. And we see this today, where we have Muslims who kill unjustly out of hate and malice because they forgot the formula from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and our Prophet ﷺ. What is it? Again, love fi sabili Allah and hate fi sabili Allah. That means you now within the framework of the Sharia and the Sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ. This is important, my brothers and sisters. This one here is very important because we all of us, especially Africans born in America and the Caribbean, and some are brothers in Europe, and maybe even some are African brothers on the continent here. They may hate, and their hate has gone past fi sabili Allah Ta'ala. They got to check that. They have to go back into within this, the Sharia and the Sunnah, and this is important, my brothers and sisters. Oh, how you doing, my sister? Salam alaikum, my dear sister, Amina. Now, so I hope we get the picture on that, and you learn from your brother here. I have many years on many of you guys in your 20s and 30s, maybe even some in your 40s. And just remember that when you do hate as a Muslim, you hate in the cause of Allah, but you also love in the cause of Allah, and you do not love. You have to balance that. Okay, balance it out, and whatnot, and learn from those of us who went through hardened racism. And you guys, perhaps now, your racism that you encompassing is maybe far less than it was when in my earlier days. Okay, number 27, not to be envious of anyone. This is hard, my brothers and sisters, number 27, because we're human beings. And every person faces with this and have the agony of dealing with this. We all have something that we're weak in. We may see Yahya, he just picked up a new car that I want, that I want, I cannot get it, but Yahya's got it. And you have that instant of the envy. We're not to do this because it leads to the footsteps of Shaitan. Shaitan begins to, again, push you over the edge, where you go into number 26, where you begin to develop a hatred and malice outside of the Sharia and the Sunnah. So envy, you must also check that, my brothers and sisters. Check this firmly, because every one of us have this. And I will say this, unfortunately, maybe it's the makeup of our sisters. Our sisters have this problem that leads them to the fire. This envy, because they have envy, because there's certain qualities that women, they they have these things, and they'll look at another woman and they make comments, and they have jealousies. And we know within the Africans born in America, we have this enmity of where you have the very dark-skinned African born in America, and you got the very light-skinned African born in America, and we have this malice between them. And we have this, and brothers have this a little bit, but not as much. But the sisters have this quite a bit. She has this quite more, and they get into groups and they get to talking about certain women because their hair is longer, or the skin is lighter, or their features are aquiline. And then the lighter skinned sisters begin to talk about the dark skinned sisters by saying, look at her hair is kinky. Look at her face. She got a big nose and thick lips. This goes on too much among our sisters. And it's envy. And sometimes that envy goes into hate. And we have to be very careful of this, my brothers and sisters, especially our sisters, because this here, the envy can lead you to a lot of problems, and you have to check it. And we all have to check this because we're human beings. We may see a house, beautiful house, and we see somebody come out of it and we say, I want that. In some ways, it's not wrong. But when you have envy and then you develop malice, every day you walk past her, you see this man, he speaks to you, but you can't speak to him because now this envy has grown into number 26, malice and hatred. You see where we're going with this, my brothers and sisters. See, so we have to be very careful because 26 leads to 27. 27 takes you back to 26. This is what we have here. 26 will lead you to 27 in many cases. And also 27 would take you back to 26, where it's malice and hatred. Be careful with this, my brothers and sisters. Very important. You have to master that. These three here, the hatred, the hatred, and the envy, and then number 28, not to become angry. Those three are very difficult because we're human beings. Again, number 28, not to be angry. It's hard. And I told you I had very little patience because I was born and raised in an era where the racism had picked up tremendously. My dad went through it, my mother somewhat, but my father in particular. My grandmother explained to me in her era how it was. My dad tried to shield us from it, but it was on his face and his deteriorating health. And I saw my mom and her deteriorating health as well, and what the effects that racism had on them, because they were born and raised in the South. I don't need to even talk about the South and whatnot, as my grandmother called where they lived in Kentucky. My grandmother called it Clan-tucky. That gives you what's happening in the South, especially in Kentucky at that time, and still they have remnants of that. But here, number 28, not to become angry. We anger when it's appropriate because we're human. You have to let out some, because the scientists have determined one of the problems that African American men have is that they hold in things, and it is detrimental. They have hypertension, and it develops into heart disease, and they have hardening of the arteries. And a lot of times this is attributed to because you have feelings trapped up in the heart and in the soul, and you want to express them, but you cannot. And it builds and builds, and the inside your body, you create hormones that become detrimental to your organs inside. This is a killer among our brothers, the Africans born in America, who have hypertension, and that is directly related to offshoot of slavery and what has been handed down. And because we have this, we have not to become angry. We try not. We try to be, because again, Africans, period, are very benevolent people. You notice we are more accepting of everybody than any other people on this earth, even to a detriment. And even when we're being harmed, we still have a tendency to accept. And we may have anger and we may have enmity, and we hold it in. Sometimes this is not good. But again, some of us in modern times now don't know how to exhibit this. They don't know how to let it out. And this is a problem. And some let it out in the wrong way, and it gets them in trouble. See, so this one here, number 29, is very difficult to master. Very difficult to master. Some of us are better than others. Some are very mild-mannered regardless of whatever. And there's other are not as mild-mannered as that. They exhibit more of it. Others keep it in, like my dad. My dad kept it in the heart. I know he did, because there was things that he said to me in later life that I knew he suffered greatly because he could not talk because of the way things were. You talked at the right, if you talked and said something at the right time, you'd be beaten by the police, killed, jailed, shot. You know what I mean? So they grew up in an era of fear. When they came from Kentucky, they grew up in an era of fear, so they had to keep it here, and it was detrimental to his health and to my mom's health as well. So this one, number 28, we have to be very, very mindful of it, and hopefully with the help of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, you always ask him to give you this tibat, this kind of perseverance and patience that you can have. And then when it's time to exhibit, there's nobody in the house, and you know you're upset. You're very upset about something that's going on. You talk to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and you can let it out. Let it out of your soul. But you got to do it at the right time. And then you have to do it under the auspices of the Quran and the Sunnah. It's hard, yes, but we be mindful that the angels are there. Be mindful, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is watching. You have to be very careful how you exhibit that anger, my brother and sister. Be very, very careful of that. Okay, number 29, not to wish harm for anyone. Again, you see a series of these things here. They get us in trouble. Now, here's what leads for the Muslims to the hellfire. This one here, number 29, not to wish to harm anyone. Just the thought of murdering your brother or sister unjustly will lead you to the fire. You should do some research on the hadith of the favorite wife. I shouldn't say that, but the wife that he did covet somewhat more than the others, Aisha radiallahu anha. And she is one of our greatest scholars and one of our hadith compilers. And you know the story about her. When the Prophet ﷺ died, and she was still, she was a young woman. And you got to think about something. When they came to something, they wanted to understand something about the Quran and Sunnah. They had scholars, but they came back and they always consulted with Aisha radiallahu anha. That's how powerful she was. And she's a woman. They didn't say, oh, she's a woman, we don't need. No, they knew her value. They know they knew Prophet ﷺ taught her. They know that she was a compiler of the hadiths, and she could always be the mediator when there was dispute, even among the scholars. They would go to her and ask her a question. Did the Prophet do this? Did the Prophet say that? And whatever she said, that's what they went by. That's how powerful she was. That's right. That's how powerful she was. And this is the early part of Islam. So whoever says that there was no scholar, there were women scholars, that they're all beaten and subjugated, don't listen to that. That's not true. We had great scholars and we had great women in every era in Islam, and they were not suppressed. They were not suppressed. I want you to understand that. Those who suppress women unjustly, like we know of some, like what's happening, in one part of the world now, where there's allegations of suppression. It is outside of the Quran and Sunnah. Okay, it's outside of that, and that's all I need to say about that. But this is a hard one. If you wish to harm someone, now we're not talking about somebody's going after your family, and that guy went after your family. Some punks beat up your son. You want to go out there and deal with him. We understand that. Yes, you may say, I'm going to beat this boy. I'm going to beat this guy because if something happened to you. This is normal. You cannot stop this. This is a human right to feel this because they attacked your family. And so that the guys live around here. And you may have inside, you say, I'm going to get you here. I'm going to get him for what he done to my wife. He disrespected my wife out there in the public. I'm going to get him. And you'll think of things of harm, maybe even murder. And this happens among the best of us. So you have to be very careful of number 29, not to wish harm on anyone. It's very difficult, very, very difficult. We have framework in the Sharia to handle cases like this, where they go and someone goes after your wife in the street and so forth. We have remedies in the Sharia to take care of that anger. So that way you don't take it in your own hands and do something. You then will fall before the Sharia court, and you could end up in prison for it or be lashed for it, even though you were trying to defend your family. But you got to be very careful. And let me tell you something else too on this. The persons who use magic, sorcery, who hire punks, thugs to go after somebody, they are attempting to murder another Muslim. You read that hadith authored by Aisha radiallahu anha. Even the thought of, even the implementation of something, and it's an attempted murder of somebody, you go to the fire. Even if that person is not murdered, be very careful about number 29, my brothers and sisters. If you use sorcery on people, that's attempted murder. You're gone. There's no, unless you ask for repentance and subhanahu wa ta'ala, he may, but you make shirk on top of that. You use sorcery against another Muslim, a man or woman, you're gone. It's over. Your prayers for 40 days are wiped out. You have to make tawbah. This is major sin because now you're making shirk because you're working with the devil. That's it. You go in modern times like the Salibin, they go hire mujrimeen to go kill. And they say they Muslims. These Salibin, they say they Muslims, but they go to the mujrimeen to hire mujrimeen, the criminals. And they go hire, they pay them money to go after me, you who go to the masjid, or me and you who are strong in Islam, or they go after the scholars, and they tell these mujrimeen, you see that guy Yahya, he's a scholar. When he come out of his house to go to Salat al-Fajr, you go beat him. They hire, and then they come back and say, I'm Muslim. Here, you are attempting to murder. You are attempting to murder, and sometimes it happens by accident. You can't come back and say 2 minutes later, you know what? Yeah, I hired these 5 guys to beat Yahya to come out, but I didn't tell him to kill. As though that's a reprieve. You're okay. Be very mindful of this one, not to wish harm, because we are human beings, and sometimes we are wrong. And you may have genuine hate in your heart, and you may have malice for something to do something to somebody, and that person gets hurt, seriously hurt. Now you're going to have to answer to subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. Be very mindful and careful of that, my brothers and sisters. Now, 30, not to have love for the world. This is something that the Muslims are well aware of. We're not to be entrenched in love for the dunya, where again, when we're not loving for fi sabilillah and hating, we have this problem here where we'll say, things because the trappings of the dunya. And how you say, Yahya, what are you talking about? And this one here, this is funny. This is a funny one here. When we get trapped up in the dunya, the world, okay, the worldly life, what happens? We have Muslims doing what? They go and leave Muslim countries to go live among the mushrikeen so they can buy that big house they see on TV in LA, okay? Or they see that big, beautiful car that they see rolling out in New York City, or they see those beautiful apartments by the rich and famous in New York, so they want that. And they begin to love the trappings of the dunya, of the worldly life. So they go to the lands of the mushrikeen, the disbelievers, to get that. Here is one of those things. They begin to love the worldly life, and they forget about subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is very dangerous, and we see this today. And you remember, let me give you some proof on this. What did the Prophet ﷺ say about this incident? He said, those who leave us, Muslim countries, and they leave the believers and the community of the believers to go live among the mushrikeen, he said he's innocent of them. That is do you know what he just have said? Do you understand that, my brothers and sisters who have left or who are contemplating to leave the Gambia or Maghreb or Egypt or Tunis or Saudi Arabia so they can go live among the mushrikeen? He said he's innocent of them. The Prophet ﷺ has made takfir. He's made expediation on you. Now, we're not talking about the incidents of our imams and our scholars who go to the United States to train. You're covered. There's all fatwas about it. There's nothing wrong with that. You go in there to get dawah, to train. How about our brothers and sisters and our children who go to learn to be doctors in California, stuff like that, and they come back to Al-Maghrib. Al-Maghrib is Morocco. Al-Maghrib is in Arabic, means Morocco. And you go and you train and you go and do this. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you go there to go and do all these things in front of all these people, okay, and you go there in front of the mushrikeen, and this is what happens. You go there and live there, then you begin to love the worldly life. This is a big, big, big problem that will take you out. As a matter of fact, you heard my class about this. They deem you to be a disbeliever because you left the Adan, you left all of the trappings of Islam, and you go live among them. And we have inside today, inside Muslim countries, out Maghreb, everywhere, all the 57 states, we have Muslims who have fell in love with the worldly life. And they exhibit that. They don't go to live among the mushrikeen, but they might as well. They have thrown away all of the Islamic principles. They don't dress like Muslims anymore. They refuse to pray. They don't read the Quran. They don't follow the Quran and the Sunnah. They don't make dhikr even remembrance to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, nor do they make dhikr to our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They just now, they only worship the dunya, and they begin to emulate the disbelievers, the rap stars in the United States, or some of the hard rock tubab. They begin to emulate that. This is some of the problems we have. And number 30 is something that those who doing this, they should look at this, to have love for the world. Be very careful, my brothers and sisters. Stay Muslim. Keep within the Quran and the Sunnah. When you have problems, you remember something. You can always go to the Quran to find those things. If you can't, you can always put your question even in Google. Even if you can't speak Arabic, you put in English, you may be able to find your answer. There'll be an answer in Google will give you to enlighten you or to strengthen you because you're weakening. And you'll find some answer, and they'll get it out from the Quran and the Sunnah. That's how you can combat this. Now, who we got here? Zora. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister. How you doing? Now, we're going to talk about the qualities of the seven connected to the tongue. Remember, I was talking about the Iman, how there's the coordination between the hands, the heart, the tongue, and the mind, right? Now we're getting to something here where in order for you to have this title as being a movement, you have to master this. And number 31 here says, recite the kalima with the tongue. This is important, my brother and sister. Remember I said this? Do you know we have a lot of Muslims today don't even read the Quran? They don't even utter any words that glorify Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. They don't even have nothing to do with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, his book, nor the hadiths. And they do not give even the shahadatain because they don't pray. And the kalima, with the tongue, to give out the remembrance, to give out the love, and there's phrases that we say in Islam that we should recite every single day. They don't do this. They don't do it. And they're guilty of this. The person, we have this, I know inside the United States, and it's happening everywhere, not only just the United States, but even in Muslim countries. They say that they're Muslimin and they're strong Muslims. But when you ask them, when's the last time you read the Quran? Oh, last Ramadan. They'll say that to you. You ask them, have you ever picked up any of the books, any hadiths? No, I was about 2 years ago, but I'm a strong Muslim. You hear this. And then you ask them, how much dhikr do you make? Sometimes I'll say, alhamdulillah. This is what we have today. This is the modern Muslim. They'll tell you this. And it's a problem. And we go to number 32 to recite the Quran. I just talked about that. I've been talking about this for weeks. This one here, to recite the Quran. This is important, my brothers and sisters. You recite the Quran. Now, how about those who cannot speak Arabic? Let me give you some advice. When I first became Muslim, I could not speak Arabic at all. But what I did, I came to Al-Maghrib in 2005, and I took my shahadatain. That's how devoted I was, that I was going to become a Muslim. Even though I had at least about 2 years before I could retire, something was in me, I had to. I got a hold of a person. They led me to a family, and this family took me in for almost about 6 weeks, and they were trying to teach me ins and outs of Islam. And this family, I still love them today. And they took me in, and they took me to a place. I got my first Quran, and they had it in English and Arabic. This is what I suggest to you. And they have the transliteration. I tried to speak to Arabic through the transliteration. You have to do that. That's what I did first because I could not speak Arabic. And so it was very difficult for me, and I didn't understand it. So I used that. Recite the Quran, my brothers and sisters. Even if you have to do it in English, Subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you in time. When you learn the Arabic, you get double reward for that because you're not a native speaker. This is important. But get that Quran, especially if you can get the Quran that's got the transliteration, the English, and then the Arabic. That's the best. And you can learn because in the transliteration, it helps you to pronounce the Arabic words. This is important. This helped me greatly. And this is what I suggest to you, my brothers and sisters, that those, especially in the West, you get that the Quran with those three things in the transliteration, in English, and then the Quranic Arabic, and then you're on your way. This should help you, and recite it often. I mean, often. You can do it every day. Take a couple of minutes every day to do it. If you're able to do it, get up well before the Salat al-Fajr and make your tahajjud. Even if you cannot memorize that, you can get your book here. You can get it here and recite it, put it back, and then you make your prayers in tahajjud, which is the night prayer before the Salat al-Fajr. And this way, you will definitely be on your way, because Subhanahu wa ta'ala will see how you are, how eager you are to learn, and he will bless you for this. Now, number 33, to acquire knowledge. Remember, we've been talking about this for a long time. This is from one of the Nawaqid's al-Islam, number 10. Matter of fact, it's about acquiring knowledge. Without acquiring knowledge, my brothers and sisters, you cannot sustain to be a Muslim. You cannot keep at the same level. You must progress all the way into the time when you are ready to pass. You must acquire knowledge. It's important. You must acquire this knowledge. You got to have that. And you must, and those I know in the West, I hear this complaint, and I understand this. You say, well, Yahya, I don't know anybody. There's no scholars I know. We don't have anybody to teach us. Well, let me give you some advice on that. Go to YouTube and you go in it. And again, I always say this about every week. So if you want names, I can give you names. There's some beautiful brothers, Africans born in America, who speak English and Arabic. And they went to Saudi Arabia and the famous schools there, Azhar, and they come back to the United States, and they have free courses. Now, some are 3, 4, 5 years old, but they're still relevant. You pick those courses up on the Aqeedah, like I'm talking about now, about the Sharia. These guys are brilliant, and they speak to you in English so you can understand. There's no excuse today, basically, for you not to acquire knowledge. So you acquire that knowledge, my brothers and sisters. Now, number 34, to pass on the knowledge. Now, see, this is important, my brothers and sisters. This is where our sisters, I would say, come in on this particular one. Why? Because if the sisters does not have the knowledge, she has not gained the knowledge, how she's going to pass it on to the children? Think about that. And our brothers, who's supposed to be head of the household, how can you be the true master of your house when you have very little knowledge of your deen, and you have your wife there, and then you have your children? You're supposed to be to educate them. And when you don't have it, how are you going to educate them? And it's a shame, to be honest with you. There's nothing, I'll put this back. If you marry a sister who's she's well-versed in Islam, there's nothing wrong with that. And just because she has more knowledge than you and you marry her, that's no shame on you. But the shame is this: if she doesn't teach you, if she doesn't help you, then the shame is on her, because she's supposed to pass on this knowledge. She's not supposed to keep this knowledge to herself. She's supposed to pass it on to her children. If her husband is ignorant of the Aqeedah and she have it, she pass it on to her husband. There's nothing wrong with that. But when she keeps it in and she don't tell, or our brothers, they have went to Hajj, they went to Umrah, they have went to schools, they have learned, and they don't pass this knowledge on to their wives and their children. This is a grave sin, to be honest, because they're supposed to pass this knowledge on. This is when the prerequisite to be a movement is to pass on the knowledge. You must do that, my brothers and sisters. You must accomplish that. Now, number 35, to make dua. Well, this is something. We should always make the dua. Means the asking Subhanahu wa ta'ala for something in this world or something in the hereafter, and always asking for the good. And you raise your hands and you you beseech subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have also remnants of this when you pray, which to me, I love the best. Why? Because there you're in seclusion. When you in prostration, you're down on the ground. It's you and subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's right. And now you can ask him all kinds of things. You can cry, you can beseech him. You can say, subhanahu wa ta'ala, please forgive me for my sins, what I have done. Please forgive me for being weak. And you can go and you can let out your heart to him because it's you and him. And so you can do that. But sometimes you can make dua when you're not praying. There's no prerequisites saying that you only could do it in prostrations. No. We have all kind of instances, which is under the sunnah, that you can make the dua, but you got to do it at the right time and at the right place. And this is important. The brothers who do a lot of dua, meaning praying for their families, praying for the ummah in itself, praying for the victory, praying that you be one of the chosen, that you would go to Jannah, to heaven. These are things that you must do, my brothers and sisters. You must do this. Making a dua. The best dua, yes, you make for yourself, but to pray for your brothers and sisters, especially who are living in tyranny, like in the Kashmir or in Myanmar, in places like that where their rights are being trampled, and the Uyghurs there in China, and in places like this, you make dua for them because they're under siege. They've been bombarded. They've been killed off. They've been imprisoned. So you make dua to subhanahu wa ta'ala that he relieved them of this tyranny that's happened to them. So you make that dua because it's important, very important. Now, number 36, to make dhikr of Allah Ta'ala. Dhikr, remember, is remembrance. How much you hear me screaming about this, talking about this. You have to make remembrance of Allah. You cannot be a Muslim. You cannot be even a Muslim or a movement, to be honest, if you don't make that. If yes, you have submitted to Islam, but how can you say you truly believe when you don't make remembrance of Allah? Remember last week at the end, I began to tell you some of the beautiful stories about how complete faith and dhikr Allah saved them from animals. And I know our sister Amina, if she's still in the thing here in the chat, she brought one story up here last week, and about the lion and what happened. And this is because of the ibadah, the worship of this particular Sahaba. He was strong in Islam, and his ibadah towards subhanahu wa ta'ala was strong. And we have these remnants again of this dhikr, this remembrance of Allah. And you remember something, the animals make dhikr to subhanahu wa ta'ala also. And I'll tell you a short one here. I gave you a lot of stories what happened to me when I became Muslim. And I'm living up in a mountain house there in California, in a beautiful area and whatnot. And I had a beautiful dog too. He was a wolf, and everybody knows the Akita. I had that. He was big, massive dog, beautiful dog, snow white color. I got him from Japan, and I got him when he was a baby. And so I raised him from the beginning. When I became Muslim, I would go out sometimes to make Fajr prayer because I loved it outside. It's dark, and I'm underneath the stars. And when you're in mountains, everything is so close because I was about 5,000 feet up. And so I would come out to make prayer, and I would face the Qibla to the east. And then the minute he heard me give the Iqama, he would come. Yes, he would. He would come, and he would stay next to me while I prayed. And after I finished praying, he got it to do because his job was to guard the house. He knew his job because anybody knows about the Akitas, they're wolves, and from Japan, they're very protective of the family, and they're very good guard dogs. But I just wanted to give you that short story to show you how they make dhikr also. He saw me make a prayer. He didn't come 30 meters from me. He came next to me near the rug where I was. And he stood and he went down with me. He stayed down on his paws, like dogs do, and he's looking around. When I got up to leave, he got to do his job again, as though he was making prayer with me. And if my wife was here, she could tell you to vouch for that. It's very interesting. And at that time, I was learning about Islam and how the animals interact when they hear you talk about subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is important, my brothers and sisters. because to make dhikr, once you begin to make dhikr, the remembrance of Allah, you'll see he'll give you this light. And when you're around these animals, they'll know that. The animals know that they're safe with you. As I explained about the rabbits at my house, up there in the same mountain residence I had, they would come out when I yelled, Allahu Akbar, they would come all out of the woods. I mean, they would come all over the place, right into my yard. And I would throw them. If I had watermelon, I had lettuce, carrots. I threw the apples, everything that I had that I was going to throw in the trash, in the disposal. I didn't. I kept it, and I threw it out there. I'm talking about, vegetables and fruits and stuff, and they ate it. And they stood right there. And sometimes I'm there even reciting the Quran in transliteration, and they're there eating. Beautiful, my brothers and sisters, because I was making dhikr. I'm still new in Islam, but the rabbits came, and again, my dog come next to me when I make prayer, even Asr prayer, something Maghrib prayer. I would go outside. He would come next to me as though he's making prayer. Beautiful, my brothers and sisters, beautiful. And now the last one here is to abstain from, this is hard. This gets all of us. All of us are guilty of this. To abstain from following lies, backbiting, vulgar words, and cursing. This and singing indecent, that is contrary to the Sharia. Now, all these things encompassing something that we all are guilty of, one way or another. None of us can say we have not done any of this. We're human beings. We do this. We have to make repentance often for this because it happens. We're human beings. There's no human being can walk this earth without sinning. He's going to sin with his tongue. He's going to sin with his heart. He's going to sin with his eyes and his mind. You're going to make some sin. Here it's been labeled lying, backbiting, vulgar words, and cursing. Now, someone would say, like the cursing. Well, yeah. There's that verse in the second surah, where the third surah, where Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has put a formula for you to use, but that's different. You're talking about incidents, and you're invoking Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to take action on some people because of what they have done, and even that you got to be very careful. The scholars have given directions, and they've given a key when you can invoke this, and it's very, very, you have to be very, very careful when you are under tyranny. Even though you have to be very careful. Now, cursing in Islam, can I go use the words like we do in the hood? No, you cannot. Those words are forbidden. You cannot do that. You cannot call someone outside their name. We all do it. We have all done it, and it's a sinful act in Islam. Now, back in the hood, you go there and you raised on certain words, you use it. In Islam, we cannot do that. We cannot invoke those words to go after people who we're mad with. We must restrain from ourselves. Salaam alaikum, my dear brother Saeed. Salaam alaikum, my brother. And so we have to be very careful about that. And so cursing is something that's very, 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 it's regulated, deeply regulated. Backbiting as well. Backbiting, everybody has done it, some form or another. Some do it more than others. It is a disease that can happen, and you have to be very mindful of it. And Islam, we have remedies for it, and we also have penalties for this. We have to be very, very careful of it, because when we think that we're not doing anything wrong, in fact, we have done something wrong. So we have to be very careful. Now, singing indecent rap songs, following the rappers. Now, we have young Muslims today. They can recite the rap songs there in the United States, and they can emulate the brothers who are involved in this type of gangster rap and all this other stuff. And even some of the love ballads where they're talking about sexual conquest, or they're talking about the sexual time with their girlfriend, this type of thing like this. We cannot recite those songs. We're forbidden from doing that. We cannot do it. And this is what they're talking about, indecent, contrary to the Sharia. You cannot do it. You cannot recite a song where you're talking about the female parts, you know what I mean? You cannot do it. Or you cannot recite the something where a sister is reciting about the man and his parts. Cannot. Nor can you give any song, singing out a song where there's sexual connotations to it. And you can't do it even when there's cursing in a meaning. Curse words that are forbidden in Islam, you cannot recite those words in a song that use those kind of words. So you be very careful of that. our brothers and sisters, because this is dangerous, very, very dangerous. So, this is, we'll stop here at number 37. And remember, these particular qualities here are important because the 7 qualities connected to the tongue is something that we all do, and yet we're all guilty of, but we have to refrain from it and ask the Supreme Court to strengthen us so we don't violate that. And number 31, reciting the kalima with the tongue. We should be doing this a lot. Remember, I told you that we should be reciting like the Shahadatain quite often. And we should be doing dhikr, la ilaha illallah, a lot. This part of the kalima, you should do this. And if you don't understand what the kalima is, it's words, but it's a series of words and phrases. And you should look it up and study it. There's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for in English? There's a lot of words written. There's a lot of things written about this word and what it means. And it's even in English, you can find it today. And the kalima is very important in Islam. Very, very important. And you have to do this, and you have to do this often in order to strengthen your Iman. And so reciting the Quran, you have to recite the Quran, my brothers and sisters. How can you say you're Muslim and you don't recite the Quran? And as I say, you could talk to some people, they say they pick it up every 6 months. Some say a year. Others say they don't pick it up at all. And then to pass on the knowledge, we're guilty of this. A lot of us don't pass on the knowledge. We'll get the knowledge, we don't pass it on. Especially inside our homes. We have knowledge, we have been trained, but we don't pass it on to our wives and our children. We must pass that knowledge on. Making dua. Number 35, we have to make dua because we have so much trouble and we have so much mishap inside the ummah today. We have many of our Muslims are suffering. We should be making dua for them. You can't change things because you don't have an army behind you. You don't have weapons behind you to make war and to free them. So the only thing you can do is make this dua to subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them relief and victory over the enemy. And you should do this. And then, like number 36, making the dhikr to Allah. This is important. You should do this often. I mean, a lot. Make it. Get your prayer beads and you make this dhikr. Even if you're at work, you can use your fingers here. You can, and you at your desk, you could, and you have a couple of minutes, you make some dhikr to subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, you recite it 100 times, with your fingers. There's many ways to accomplish this during the day. Even if you're working, you can do many things, my brothers and sisters. And so that dhikr is important. And refraining, again, the last here, refraining, the number 7, which deals with the tongue, refraining from lies, backbiting, and vulgar words and cursing, and singing indecent that is contrary to the Sharia. That's something we must work hard on because this is prevalent among all human beings. I mean, all human beings, they do this type of thing, especially the brothers, the Africans in America, because we are raised up on songs, that are vulgar, okay, bottom line. And we know many of these songs, and we have recited those songs. But now as Muslims, we cannot do this anymore. We're forbidden from this, even though we like it and we hear it and we say, oh man, I haven't heard this song in a long time. But in it is ballad of love. We cannot do it. There's sexual connotations in it. We cannot do it. We cannot talk about killing somebody like in the gangster raps. We can't talk about doing drive-bys and spraying up the place in the area. We cannot sing those kind of songs to invoke shaitan to us, because that's what it is. When you start singing songs like this, where you're talking about doing drive-bys, or talking about spraying and talking about I'm going to kill the Nigger and so forth and so on, you invite the devil to you. This is why it's very important not to recite songs like this. When you recite the songs of love, meaning you work yourselves up into thoughts of, and what you're a human being. And men, we know men have problems in areas like this because we have releases that we must have, must be accomplished. And so men are easily enticed, so to speak, and then we get in trouble. Shaitan sends exactly what you've been talking about in front of your face, and things happen. We know that things will happen. The devil will send one of his harlots to come by you on the street, because you've been thinking about this girl. You sing the song, and you sing the song about how she looked and how tall she is and this and that, and her, how her body is. And suddenly you walk down the street, here's come a girl just like that. It happens, brothers. It happens. So you be very mindful of that. Don't recite these songs anymore. You Muslim, forget about them because you incite the devil. So my brothers and sisters, I must say today that this lesson that we had on these were very important, but they're easy to accomplish. So remember, my brother and sister, these things are easy to accomplish, but work on it. As your brothers talk to you now, even I told you, I fall short of, there's a couple here that, I must work on. And I told you, like the number 26, the hatred and malice, I have to work on that because I have problems in that, and I hate certain people and so forth. Meaning, I'm talking about certain people, as you understand me say many times, the racist too about, I don't like them. And I don't like the hypocrites either. And I have a hard, a dislike, and I have to have that in check. So we all have something. Mine may be one thing. Saeed may have something else that he has, that he's consumed with dislike. And, in our sister Amina, same thing, and Zora, our sister here, all of us have something that really makes us, hate and have this hatred and malice towards something. It could be mine is Tubab. Everybody knows that Tubab is mine. The racist Tubab. I have this thing and I have to control it. Maybe Saeed has something else that he doesn't like and he has to control his. And Amina, sister Amina, she has hers, and sister Zora may have hers. So we all have something that we have to work on. So my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up today. Hope you got something out of this. And I've left it in the chat so you can do your research on it, and then you can learn it and implement it in your life. Thank you, my brother Saeed, for coming. And sister Zora, thank you very much. And sister Amina, thank you as always, my dear sister. And my brothers and sisters in the future will show up. And those who did show up today, thank you for showing up and listening to your brothers speak and everything. And remember, my brothers and sisters there in the United States, be mindful of where you're at, because you are minutes away of being shot. And you know that, and minutes away of being harassed. And you can really suffer, and you can suffer a great pain over something. And I'll say this and I'll stop. My brothers and sisters, I've seen a lot of stuff that's going on now. And we have a lot of things happening where we have our sisters, and we have white, black, Asian, all kinds of other women are making false reports on men. Be mindful, my brothers and sisters, of what you are doing. And because that moment of pleasure may be something that may trap you in the long run. Or just because you were in some place and you were alone with this particular girl, nothing happened, but she swears something happened. It could lead you to a lot of court time and maybe even lose your family. Be mindful of that, my brothers and sisters, because the devil is hard at work, and he's starting to go after the women a lot in the United States. And now even our sisters are making up things on brothers and getting them killed or getting them thrown in jail or and stuff like that. Be very mindful of that. Keep your relationships according to the Sharia and Sunnah. Don't be dating no girl. I don't care who she is, how fine she is, or where she's from the hood. Don't date her. You're a Muslim. You cannot date. Stay away from that, my brothers and sisters. Stay away from dating. It gets you in trouble. The brothers in particular, that girl you dated, that fine young lady that you dated who's not a Muslim, or she's a Muslim, but she's weak, and you date her, and then suddenly you say you don't want to marry her, and then you wake up one night, here's a knock on the door, here's some police coming to take you in for allegedly ravishing her. This is happening, my brothers. I just read a case out of New York like that. The brother went on a date. He said that they thought they were going to marry. When he decided he wanted to marry somebody else, the next morning, they came to his door to get him because she claimed that he ravished her. Okay. And it took him almost a year to get his name cleared. But in the meantime, he was in trouble. His parents had to pay a lot of money because he was a young man. Be very careful, my brothers and sisters out there, in the United States in particular. There's some crazy stuff going on there. You stay within the Quran and Sunnah. And our sisters the same way. Don't go dating. Don't go exhibiting yourselves out there. Don't go out there making your body, to attract the man. You may run yourself into trouble. You fight the devil. The devil send one of his minions to come after you. Don't do it. Be very mindful of that. But I'm very afraid of our brothers in the United States and what is happening. The Muslim men are being arrested a lot now, a lot for improprieties because they dated, and even though they didn't do anything, but they went to jail for it, and they were defamed over a lie, or something happened 2 or 3 years ago. They dated some girl, and yes, they might have had contact with her, at the hotel room, And then suddenly she comes back years later to come back on you. So brothers in Islam, stay away from that. Even our brothers, Africans born in America, even if you're not a Muslim, you stay out away from these relationships. You only go to a girl you think that you can marry, and you do it in the sense that you're around. You meet her at McDonald's, okay? And then when you part your separate ways. Don't take her places. It's this today, I'm advising you this because things are happening now. Too many things. Brothers are being, shot and killed in their homes after some girls made an allegation when you didn't do it. And finally, years later, girls say, yeah, I was so mad with Yahya because he decided he didn't want to marry me, or he begged me the whole weekend and then he didn't want to talk to me no more. So I wanted to get even with him. So I called the police, and the police come to shoot me. And this is happening. So my brothers and sisters, please be mindful of that. Stay within the Quran and Sunnah. Don't date. Don't do anything. Don't be alone with these young, beautiful women, because we have sisters today of all colors that are beautiful and they can entice you, and you can get yourself in trouble that may last you a lifetime. Don't do that. Stay away from that. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I gave you some advice, and I wanted to express that to you. And so I thank you again for the chat, my brothers and sisters, Saeed and Abina. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister, and Zora, and you guys. I appreciate you showing up and everything. My brothers and sisters who will show up in the future as well to hear you, brothers, speak. So I would leave you, my brothers and sisters, with the beautiful words of Jinnah. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh.